It's 3:17 in the afternoon on March 18, 1937. A loud sound is heard across the piney woods of East Texas. It is the sound of a school being lifted off of its foundation in the small town of New London. This is known as the third most deadly disaster in Texas history and the deadliest school disaster in American history. But the story begins 7 years earlier. On October 3, 1930, a man by the name of Columbus Dad Joyner found the second biggest oil field in the United States at the time. People came flooding in to get a job, making the population of tiny East Texas towns double or triple overnight. Oil wells were going up everywhere, and the small farm communities and schools were overwhelmed. In early 1930, the London School District had less than 100 students and were proud of that number. By 1935, they had over 1,300 students and had built a $1 million campus that offered a top-notch education. The main school building had 72 natural gas heaters, and in the middle of the oil patch, they had access to free gas coming directly from the oil wells. While not exactly legal, it was common practice to tap into gas lines to heat homes and businesses. Natural gas was a waste product, and the oil companies burned it off, so many people tapped into these lines, and the oil companies looked the other way. But natural gas is odorless and colorless, so there's no easy way to detect it, and in the New London school there was a leak. By March of 1937, it had filled the 15,000 square foot enclosed crawl space under the school building. On March 18, 1937, at 3:17 p.m., manual training teacher Lemmy Butler turned on an electric sander, causing a spark that ignited the natural gas in the crawl space. Witnesses say the entire building was lifted straight up before crashing back to the ground and collapsing. The power was so great that a 2-ton slab of concrete flew 200 feet and crushed the 1936 Chevrolet parked nearby. Luckily, nobody was in the car at the time. The explosion was its own alarm, and many heard it over 3 miles away. Thousands came from the oil field to help. Many of these oil field workers were parents of London school students and dug frantically to find their own children. Texas Governor James V. Allred sent the Texas Rangers, the National Guard, and the Highway Patrol. 30 doctors and 100 nurses came, and 25 embalmers were sent from Dallas, Texas. In a shocking 17 hours, all the rubble had been moved by hand because workers were afraid of using heavy equipment and make the building shift and crush a survivor. The searchers were working so quickly that they did not check to see if the person they were dragging from the rubble was alive or not. The surrounding towns were filled with the wounded, and families had to search for their children at churches, hospitals, and any building that could be utilized as a makeshift morgue or hospital. Mother Frances Hospital in Tyler, Texas, canceled its elaborate dedication ceremonies to help those injured in the London school disaster. It is believed that 294 people died, but the exact number may never be known, since many families had recently moved to New London for oil field work. Some, in their shock and sorrow, took their deceased children and returned home to family immediately. Also, school records were destroyed in the explosion, and many students were attending a scholastic competition in Henderson that day, so numbers are difficult to confirm. Reporters flocked to the small community. Walter Cronkite, a new reporter with United Press International, who went on to cover World War II and the Nuremberg trials, was quoted decades later saying, "I did nothing in my studies or in my life to prepare me for this first story of the magnitude of that New London tragedy, nor has any story since that awful day equaled it." New technology meant that news reports circled the world very quickly. Adolf Hitler paid his respects in the form of a telegraph. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt sent a telegraph to express her sympathy, and many others sent their condolences. School children in Poland, Brazil, and other countries sent notes to express their sorrow. The kids who came back to school 11 days after the explosion were afraid to ask about a friend's missing sibling or anyone who was not at school. The people of New London refused to talk about the catastrophe until the 70s. Some survivors learned 50-odd years after the tragedy that their friends had not died, but had simply moved away in the aftermath of the explosion. To keep anything like this from ever happening again, a law was passed requiring a cent to be added to natural gas. If you go to New London today, you will see the school that was rebuilt in 1938 just in front of the site of the old school. Across the street is the London Museum, and in the middle of the road between the school and the museum, there's a 30-foot tall cenotaph listing the names of those who died in the tragic New London school explosion. If you wish to learn more, go to the London Museum in New London, Texas. I have linked their website below. Today is the 87th anniversary of the New London school explosion.